Let's go.
I'm at 33.
I'm at 39 now. Now I'm sad.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Michael Hale. I'm the president of Liberty Hangout at Kent State. I would like to thank everyone who did come out on the cold night tonight and join us this evening for a great presentation. I wanted to state our goal as a club first. So, as Liberty Hangout at Kent State, what our main goal is to do is to go out on campus, find that issue that everyone in the club really agrees about. Recently, it's been gun rights. What we do is we go out and we do an event or demonstration and we film it, and then instead of talking to 20 to 30 people that day, we put it in front of a couple 100,000 people to see, and it gives our club not only a national platform, but it gives us a chance to make a difference with the issues that we care about. This is what we attempted to do in September, just as we had done in April last semester with no issue. However, due to violent leftist protesters who were not even protesting what we were there for, our impact was made, but the message was somewhat muddled. Today, our goal is to answer any questions left from that day, as well as anything that may be a misconception of who we are and what our club stands for. Here today, to speak about this message is founder of Liberty Hangout at Kent State and her boyfriend Justin, the founder of LibertyHangout.org. Please help me welcome Kaitlin Bennett.
That this would be the crowd size, considering tomorrow is Thanksgiving break and it's last day of classes, but hopefully there's still some people out there who disagree with what I talk about or what I post about, what I believe in, so that we can have a discussion and I can answer any of your questions that you have. But other than that, I hope maybe there's some people who do agree with me. My dad's there. He agrees with everything I say. So, maybe we'll teach you guys a little bit, if you agree with what we say, how to get that message across to young people, because I've noticed that when we talk to young people, we kind of lose their hearts and minds. We usually come at it from statistics and facts, but we need to go from the perspective that this is our property rights and gun rights are just, they're moral, they're ethical, and they can't be infringed upon. So,
yeah, so Kate kind of just said it pretty simply there, is that we want to come at this from a unique angle here today, because oftentimes when you hear people speak about guns, it becomes a debate about the numbers, about the studies, about what have you. And so usually when we're talking about those sorts of things, anyone's just going to find a study that confirms their own bias. So we want to take the angle that this is a right and just position. So that's the angle that we're going to come across here today.
Is this working? I'm done trying. So this is a controversial subject, and we know that because the last time we tried to do this on September 29th, and the administration tried to charge the Liberty Hangout group $14,000 so that we could go out on the K and have this conversation and bring gun owners and students together, and we weren't going with that. There's no reason why we should have to pay $14,000 to have a conversation with students. So that's why we're here today, and I think we see, I don't think any of them were here from the protest that actually came out and talked to us last time. I don't think any of them were here. But I'm going to show you
probably in their mother's basement right
So we're going to show you why we think they're not here. We're going to show you a clip of what happened on September 29th and what's been happening across college campuses for the past 2 years since Donald Trump became president and since he was running for president. It's violence. They don't want to come out and have a conversation with right-wingers. They want to come out and be violent. They want to shut us down. And it's really important that we kind of show the moral high ground, which we did that day. So let's go ahead and... scarf. I guess I wish I could call him out if he were here, but he just wanted to come and be violent towards us. You heard them shouting, "No Trump, no KKK." That had nothing to do with Trump, had nothing to do with the KKK. There weren't any KKK members there. But that's what they wanted to come out and do. They took our message of gun rights and turned it into one that had nothing to do with it, and then were violent towards us. And 4 people got arrested that day. None of them were on our side. None of them were a gun owner. So that's really where we're at today, where we can see how many people are here versus how many people came out to be violent. And this is happening across America on college campuses every day. So.
Alright, so before we really get started with what we wanted to cover tonight, we wanted to start this discussion by giving you a background about who the two of us are. Because we feel that you've probably seen a lot about us online before, but we wanted to give you the chance to actually hear our story from ourselves here today. So to start off, my name is Justin, and I am the founder of Liberty Hangout, which I created in 2015 when I was a student at a small school in New York City called Manhattan College. During my time there, I joined some groups and became active on campus. And I got inspired to start my own website to be able to have a greater impact in spreading my views. So the site started out small, but over time after I graduated college in 2016, it really started to take off. And now here today we have more than 200,000 followers online, and we're able to reach tens of millions of people each week. And as the site's progressed, well, now we decided that we wanted to take a little bit of a different turn and try to impact students here on college campuses who kind of think like us, but are maybe too afraid to stand up for what they believe in. And once I started dating Kate, that's how we got started here on Kent State, and I think she can speak about that.
So when I became political, instead of starting a website, I just started to go out and start a ruckus on campus just by espousing my conservative views. And it worked, and I think the administration that are here today can speak to that. Definitely having a right-wing view on this campus was so fun for me. I think the funnest part about it was that it made so many people mad. Just my opinions made so many people mad. And in a way, it was empowering that I could just speak my opinions, and there were so many people that wanted to shut me down, but the more they tried to do that, the stronger I got, the louder I got, the more empowered I got, because I don't like people telling me what to do. So, getting sent to student code of conduct for waving a Trump flag around, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna get 10 more people to come with me, and that's exactly what I kept doing every step of the way. So, like I said, I did this on campus for 2 years. I've been talking to students for 2 years. I would spend several hours in the Kent State Student Center, literally going up to students, engaging in conversations that I know they didn't want to have about free speech, free markets, the dangers of socialism, and the dangers of gun control. And I loved every second of it. So ultimately, my first event here at Kent State was one about campus carry. And I'm so glad that that's now my message today, because that's what I started on campus doing, and that's what I finished here doing. And ultimately, I decided I wanted gun rights to be my message after the Parkland shooting happened and David Hall was able to gather tens of thousands of young people to march in the streets demanding gun control. And I'm like, holy crap, where's the other side? Where's that young person that doesn't think gun control is going to fix any of these mass shootings or these school shootings? So I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I guess my voice will just be here at Kent State, but it was enough for me because I knew there were students that felt like me but were afraid to say anything. But so after that, after I started talking to students about gun rights, I actually ended up organizing my own open carry demonstration on the K in April, which went spectacular. We had over 50 gun owners together with students, and we were out on the K for 5 hours, and it was wonderful. But I think mainly the reason why Justin and I are both here today is because we had each other, and we push each other to do these types of things, and it's so fun when you find somebody that you can get along with and date and then do all of this fun stuff. And from there, you guys probably know the rest of the story.
So where the story gets interesting, where I'm sure a lot of you picked up on, was in May when Kate graduated. I was sitting at work one day when she texted me and she said, "Justin, my graduation's coming up. What should I put on my cap?" So she sent me some ideas, she sent me some designs, and ultimately, as you guys have seen, she put "Come and Take It" on there with an AR-15 rifle. But then I was thinking in the back of my head back to the open carry rally that we did in April, and I realized that guests were allowed to open carry that day while students couldn't. I said, hey, when you graduate, you're going to be guests. You're not going to be a student anymore. You can go back there with a firearm. Why don't we go there this weekend with a rifle and take some cool graduation pictures? And so we did. And believe it or not, it took a few days for them to really blow up online. We weren't expecting any of that to happen. But I'm sure you guys know the rest of the story from that point.
So when I took my pictures, it wasn't saying, hey world, look at me, listen to me. I don't believe in gun control. I'm a young person, I just graduated, so at the time I was a student, I didn't believe in gun control. I wanted Kent State to listen. I wanted the administration to listen to me. I wanted them to look at that picture and see how ridiculous it was that I could have a rifle on campus the day of graduation, but the day before I couldn't even have my handgun on me for self-protection. The policy simply does not make sense. And it was also an invitation for all of the times that the leftists on campus would come out and try to send me to conduct, or they would protest gun rights and protest my events. It's an open invitation to them. Don't vote to have the government come and take my guns. Come and do it yourself. And I doubt any of them have that ability or will even go through with it. So it was an open invitation to come and take it.
Okay, so we're going to have a pretty good flow of things tonight for our conversation to discuss why we believe our position is the right and just one. So to start off, we're going to begin with property rights, since we believe that's the underlying principle behind gun rights. From there, we'll talk a bit about the history of gun rights in the United States, move on into why we believe gun rights are absolute, and then I'll conclude us into why we ultimately believe and support campus carry. So let's get started. To begin, property rights are a very simple principle, so easy to understand, yet so hard for a lot of people to accept, unfortunately. Property rights ultimately mean nothing more than you have the right to the property that you own, whether it's your firearm, your cell phone, or even your life. No one is permitted to take that from you. Nor do we have the right to raise our hands in here and vote on trying to take away property from someone else. So why does that principle suddenly change when it comes to firearms? How can you delegate a right that you don't have over to the government and say, I want you to take this person's property. I don't like them, I don't like that property. The fact is that if you want to take away someone else's property, that ultimately makes you the bad guy. So this is the underlying principle behind gun rights and where we're going to start from tonight. So that moves us on to the history of gun rights in the United States. And a lot of this conversation revolves around none other than the Second Amendment. But where a lot of people get it wrong is that they see the Second Amendment and they feel that our right to keep and bear arms then comes from the government. But this couldn't be any more untrue. And in fact, it's an interpretation that I believe our founders would vehemently disagree with. Instead, they believe that the right to keep and bear arms was an inherent right, intrinsic to our being and fundamental to our existence. And so in the late 18th century, our founding fathers fought a revolutionary war over these foundational principles and gave rise to the United States. And so they believed that the right to bear arms did not come from government, but rather in their state constitutions, they wrote in there to recognize and respect your right to bear arms and understand that the government cannot, under any circumstance, take it away. So then in 1791, when the Constitution was ratified, we were given the Second Amendment, which states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There is one component of that language there that I want to touch on, because I'm sure that we're going to get asked questions about this, as we typically are, and that is the language concerning what is the militia. Because people oftentimes look at the Second Amendment and think, oh, it says that if you're a well-regulated militia, you can keep and bear arms. So what did the founders think about this? What did they think the militia is? Well, why don't we look to what they told us? We can look to the words of Richard Henry Lee, who said that a militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves, and render regular troops in a great measure unnecessary. Or George Mason, who said, I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, except a few public officers, which would be the government. We can look right to the Virginia State Constitution and see some familiar language written right in here, which says that a well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained to arms, is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state, and therefore the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And finally, we can even look at the Pennsylvania State Constitution, which tells us the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned.
So I think the founders would absolutely agree with me when I say that every single gun law is an infringement. Because I definitely believe that it is. The government does not have the right to legislate what people do with their property. Since we're coming at this from a property rights perspective, they don't have the right to come in and tell manufacturers what they can make or how many of it they can make. We're not professionals up here, so. Okay, yes. So I think they would even be upset that we're even having this conversation today. And the term gun rights is an oxymoron because back then they knew it was simply your right to have a firearm and that was your property, and your right to self-defense is so important that they didn't discuss it. It was, yes, this is inherent, that you were born with this right. But today we have to stand out here and convince people otherwise, or that is true still to this day. And they're fighting so hard to try to tell us and tell young people that, well, you don't have a right to self-defense with a firearm. That's not how it is, and that's exactly what it is. You have the right to self-defense with any weapon that you want, to be honest. So the biggest problem with these gun laws we see is that they tell people what they can and can't purchase, what they can and can't have to defend their life. And I want to go through a couple of the most common forms of gun control up there. And I know when you guys look at those, you don't think that's gun control. You know, those are gun laws. Specifically the concealed carry licenses. And this is a fun fact. There are more than 20,000 gun laws on the books today, when there should be absolutely zero. There should be zero gun laws today. But if there's anybody in the audience who really thinks that 20,000 gun laws is working and we need more, then I would love to have you come up and try to convince me of that, because the statistics don't show that, but I guess we aren't going at this from a statistics standpoint. So I want to touch on the concealed carry licenses, simply because a lot of people from the left and the right can come together when they're like, concealed carry licenses, those are good. They let people get permission from the state to carry their firearm, but that's actually the backwards thinking that has gotten us to this point to where we have to fight so hard to get our rights back. I shouldn't need the government's permission to carry a firearm underneath my shirt or in my waistband. The right that I have to carry a firearm does not need to be complemented with permission from the government. And we could go with the laws that we have today. You have to do a background check, which is one of those up there, to even purchase a handgun. So once you have your property, once you have your handgun, you have to go through extra permission so they can tell you, okay, Kate, you were able to pass a background check and buy your handgun, but now you have to go through extra training, you have to go through these classes, and now you're going to have to pay extra money and get extra permission just to carry it out of your house and in your waistband and underneath your shirt. And it's absolutely ridiculous. You don't need the government's permission for any of that. And if you think that we do, then that's why we're in this discussion that we are in today.
Now, for anyone in here who disagrees with us on these positions, I know it's going to be very difficult to convince you one slide at a time, but I want to put this slide in particular into perspective for you, because you may still think that some of these on here are reasonable abuses of government power, but what if we were to apply these same laws to, say, the First Amendment? Would you think about these things a little differently? What if you needed the government's permission to post on the internet? What if you needed to pass a background check to speak freely or worship your own God? What if you need to wait 10 days? What if you needed a license just to speak your mind? So if you leave this room thinking about one thing today, I want you to think about that. Apply these same laws to the First Amendment and tell me if you think that makes sense.
And what's funny is I guarantee you, well, I know that there are students on this campus and across college campuses in America who actually believe that you should have to have a background check to exercise your free speech or believe in any God that you want to. So So the problems don't start at the lack of education about the Second Amendment, but it goes clear into free speech, a simple fundamental right that is so easy to understand. And going forward from that, yes, that's me. So we're going to talk about why we support campus carry. When I say we, I mean the students who are in Liberty Hangout that have helped me every step of the way. Thank you, Michael, for everything that you do. I wouldn't be able to be where I am today without Michael either, so thank you. So when we talk about gun laws and concealed carry licenses, we are also talking about laws that restrict campus carry. And I'm going to go back to the backwards thinking that I started with, that there shouldn't even be legislation that allows campus carry. Campus carry is still your right. Just because I step off campus, that the line of Summit Street or Main Street, the other side of Main Street, my right to self-defense is not in there when I step onto campus. Because I guarantee you, and we know this from looking at the crime rates for on campus versus off campus, violence doesn't stop when someone steps on campus. It doesn't end. Just like my right to self-defense does not end when I step onto campus. And I know this from personal experience, when I could get death threats and rape threats simply for being who I am and espousing my views. And all I had to do, all I had with me was, okay, someone said they want me to be raped, someone said they want me to have an abortion, they want me to die, and they described in detail how they wanted me to be raped and when they wanted me to be raped. So all I had on me was to make sure that someone wouldn't attack me, and if they did, I would hopefully make it to a blue light in time. And if I did make it to a blue light on time, hopefully the police would come and get me and save me before the person did. It is such a scary feeling. And I honestly believe that there's probably several women who have felt scared to walk on campus in the dark or to the classes alone. So I know that people know where I'm coming from.
What's crazy too is that in many instances, the government doesn't even let the school decide if their students' lives are important enough to protect. Now, the small school that I went to in the Bronx, New York, which, as we know, is not the safest of cities, it was a private school. So even if they wanted to let us defend ourselves, because of the laws in New York City, we weren't allowed to. So even given the fact that there were drive-by shootings at yogurt shops, at frozen yogurt places, just a block off campus, the government demanded that our lives are not valuable enough to protect.
So we want to show you a clip actually proving that violence doesn't stop when we step onto campus. What you're about to see is literally just we were trying to have a discussion, and the LH club members up there probably know what I'm about to show, and Michael can speak to this as well, that literally violence does not stop.
How about we change that to confirmation bias for you, Gordon?
We're giving you facts. All you've given us so far is we should make AR-15 because that's how you pass. You haven't given me any reason other than done anything. I mean, all right.
Oh, do what you
I'll
want.
call it, but we're just trying to start a discussion.
Ironically, the only thing he was worried about was the $1,000 camera, which I guess would be pretty important since that's what filmed that video. But as you saw, you know, that kid who just hit the cameraman and broke his camera didn't sit there and think that, oh, I'm not allowed to do this, so I'm not going to. No, violence doesn't end when we step on campus. Sexual assault doesn't end when we step on campus. And that's what that's the misconception that people have. So what does Kent State do because this happened? They put the guy who assaulted the person who was filming in the same hall. They are in the same hall, and if this guy has already attacked an unarmed person, I guarantee you he will have no problem doing it again. So the school isn't there to protect us. We should take our safety into our own hands. And no, I'm not saying if a firearm was there that we would have shot at him. And that's the first thing people say. It's the fact that firearms are a deterrent. And we can see that because 500,000 to 1 million lives are saved, or 3 million lives are saved every year due to defensive use of firearms. So why can't we be added into that statistic where we prevent violent crime and violent assault with our firearms? Because if he thought for a second that any of us could have been able to defend ourselves, I don't think that would have happened. He probably would have thought twice about punching somebody that day. So like I said, things that, okay, I'm just going to dive right into this. So this is a big misconception. And when we talk about gun control, a lot of it comes from the public's thinking of they don't know what firearms are. They don't know what gun control is, or they have misconceptions about what gun owners do, what they have to go through, or what firearms are. So there's literally so few of you that we could just literally talk right now. So which one of these is a rifle? You can either think to it in your head or like discuss with the person next to you, but all 3 of these, which one is a rifle? My 13-year-old sister is trying to guess. So actually, only 2 of these are a rifle. And when we have the public that's misconstruing firearms, it actually leaks into our government. So these are rules from the ATF, which is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They make these laws. They classify certain weapons as being ATF weapons. So that one on the far left is your standard rifle. This one right here is a short barreled rifle to where you have to pay an extra $200 in a tax stamp to obtain. You have to go through 8 extra months of a background check, and you'll just guess if you get to have it. You have to pay $200 extra just to have that firearm. The one above is actually a pistol. It's a handgun. And you can carry it with you, concealed in the state of Ohio. And just looking at these, how backwards is that? And if you change a component on that one, on these 2, the short barrel rifle and the pistol, you just became a felon. Congratulations. If you take the stock, the part that goes in your shoulder, and you switch it from the pistol to the short barrel rifle, you just became a felon. Now that is so messed up. Our government is so incompetent that they're making all these rules and classifying weapons into something that does not make sense. There is no difference between this short barrel rifle and a pistol. And maybe that's kind of hard for you guys to understand, but that's the point. It's hard for you to understand because when you break a law, when you mix these up, or you carry one when you're not supposed to, the government can come after you and deem you a felon, restrict your right to self-defense. That's ultimately their goal.
Alright, so back in February, we came onto this campus and we recorded a video for Liberty Hangout where we asked students the following question that's up here on the screen. Which one of these firearms is semi-automatic? Now, looking at this, if you're not too privy about firearms, I'm guessing you would probably say the one on the left. But the answer is actually both. Now, this is a really dangerous misconception because when we were talking to students, a lot of them would say, we should ban semi-automatic weapons, but I'm still okay with people having handguns for self-defense. Well, when they say things like that, because these are both semi-automatic, they're actually advocating for banning both. They're advocating for banning darn near every single gun in America outside of revolvers. So what does semi-automatic mean? Simply means that one pull of the trigger is going to release one bullet from the chamber. That's all it means. This handgun and a semi-automatic AR-15 rifle operate in the exact same function.
And actually, I'm just going to throw a statistic out there that most mass shootings, 80% of mass shootings since 1930, have happened with a handgun. Not the scary rifle that everybody wants to ban. So when they go after these rifles and they're saying, we need to ban semi-automatic weapons, be careful of what you're advocating for. Because the government loves that. They love when they hear, we've got all of these people to misconstrue firearms and look, they want to ban all semi-automatic weapons. The government's going to go right along with you because it'll be easier to control us. And I know that probably sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but it's true. And we can see it with all the gun laws that we have, the taxes that we have, the property rights that are being infringed upon every day. That is their goal, and you're feeding right into it.
And just a minute, we'll get to show you how this language is so important because it leads to many severe implications. So this next one is really important. And it's the question, what is an assault rifle? Well, the actual answer to this would be neither of these, because believe it or not, assault rifle is a made-up term that was created in the 1980s in order to try to justify banning automatic weapons. And so we see a lot of politicians, a lot of people on the left trying to reassign this label now to semi-automatics, which, as I just explained, only one bullet is released. They're trying to reassign this label in order to justify banning semi-automatic weapons, and it's a really, really dangerous misconception that we need to be able to wrap our head around and understand that there is no such thing as an assault rifle.
And to go along with that, there's no such thing as an assault weapon either. But we are going to show you exactly what happens when people fall for this type of language. So this is an Initiative 1639 that actually got passed in Washington State November 8th when everybody voted. They went through with this legislation and it's now being implemented. So I'm not going to read it all to you because you're on call and you can read, but what I have highlighted is semi-automatic assault rifle. So right there, that language, semi-automatic and assault rifle. Those two things are literally opposites. One, assault rifles don't even exist, but now they're putting that language together, that semi-automatic assault rifle. So this leads you to the question, okay, semi-automatic assault rifle, people are thinking about the AR-15, which is not an assault rifle, but what's going to happen with this? They don't really talk about this, but semi-automatic, when we start getting that language wrong, is that going to mean handguns eventually? Because in some states right now, your handgun that's semi-automatic actually falls into an assault weapon category if you have a magazine capacity that's too high for that state. And then we go on, criminalizing non-compliant storage. Imagine being criminalized because you put your lamp on the wrong side of the couch. The government should not be telling you how you use your property, how you store your property once you have purchased it. I mean, just imagine that. It's ridiculous. But some people think it's okay. And then what's really dangerous about this is the enact other provision. So they have a very wordy initiative that if you just read the first parts, a lot of people on both sides would be okay with, okay, increase background checks, that's fine. Waiting periods, that's okay. You know, we don't want any crazies out there buying a gun and then going out and shooting someone with it that day. But when you get down to the bottom, it literally says enact other provisions. So they have this wordy initiative up there that not only lets them do what they flat out say they want to do, but in the long run, they can say, you voted on this, we're going to keep pushing, we're going to keep going and enact other provisions. But thankfully, this is being challenged in the Washington State Court right now, and hopefully it gets pushed back because this is such a nasty infringement on our rights. So with these implications come Ohio law regarding campus carry. And this is where I feel the most strongly about. So this picture right here is actually from our open carry rally, open carry demonstration in April that we did when I was still a student. And so the law will state it is illegal to conceal carry on a public university for both students and guests. You can be criminalized for concealing a handgun, but you can have it, if you're a guest, outside of your waistband for everybody to see. How does the danger that you pose change just because you have it inside versus outside? There's that language again that we need concealed carry licenses. That's that backwards thinking we have again. That somehow you have the right to self-defense if you're going to show everyone your weapon, besides if you want to put it into your waistband. But like I said, it's legal for guests to open carry, and that's the problem I had is that Kent State's policy states that they don't allow guests to open carry. I'm sorry, students to open carry, but they allow guests. And someone is insinuating that they care more about the lives of guests rather than their students. It's so insulting to me that my dad comes on campus, or when Justin comes on campus, when I was a student, their lives somehow mattered more than mine. In the classroom, in the dorm, and in the library where I was studying, where I spent 4 years of my time. And I don't know how any of you could say that that's not an insulting policy. So
I can just kind of speak to experience for one. She was a student here, and I was a guest, so when I would come visit Kate on campus, I was able to open carry if I wanted, but only when I was outside. So there was effectively no reason for me to carry on campus outside when we did events like this. And that's the problem that we see here, is that people call this place home for 4 or more years, and they effectively are stripped of their right to self-defense, because at the end of the day, if they're out somewhere during the evening or anywhere, even though they can legally carry off campus, if you can't come back home with it, you effectively can't have it, and that's a problem that needs to change.
And a lot of, when I've actually gotten to talk to students when I come back after graduating, I get a lot of the same questions is, oh my God, Kaitlin, you're so crazy. You want every student to be walking around with a gun? No, I never said that. And that's not what campus carry means. Campus carry means allowing the people who can legally have a handgun the option to protect themselves on campus. We have already given an inch to the gun grabbers that we have so many compromises now of who can carry on campus. So you have to be 21 to have a handgun. You have to go through a background check. That already limits so many people, especially in the dorms, because 18-year-olds can't have a handgun, which we absolutely believe that if you can go into the military, you should be able to protect your own life with a handgun here at home. But there's just so many other misconceptions about campus carry. And, you know, I took my picture with a rifle. Yes, it was to make a statement. It was to make a bold statement, because no one's going to care if you go out there. And I learned this in my activism. You have to do crazy stuff to get people to listen to you and get your point across, because no one cares when you're out there with a clipboard. Hey, Bob, will you sign my petition about free speech? You have to get out there, you have to do crazy things, and you have to make a bold statement. You can't be afraid to do it. So that's what I did. So no, what's practical is campus carry means concealing a handgun on campus, in the dorm, in the library, in the auditorium. Do I really expect students to be walking around with an AR-10? No, it's absolutely their right to do so, but that's not what's practical, and that's what campus carry means. It's allowing the people who already can have a handgun that's already gotten that permission from the government to be able to protect themselves while they're on campus, because your lives matter as students. So why is it we don't appreciate that, we don't see that? When we have so many protests about this life mattering or that life mattering, and we have to stand up for these certain people, the best way that you can stand up for any type of group of people on this campus is to support their right to self-defense so that they can protect their life. That is the most you could do for any type of group on this campus. Yeah. So we actually have a video of all of the students coming together and explaining why they believe in campus carry, because it's not just my message. It's the message of the guys up there in the corner. It's Michael's message. It's my family's message. So we want to show that to you. Well,
It's supposed to be a video.
well, it's supposed to look, there's a little thing right there that's supposed to play.
Yeah, it's not
Okay, well, you don't get to see that video, but basically there's a lot of students explaining their point of view. Oh, okay, they're gonna do it, thanks. And I support campus carry. And unlike the media will tell you, so do other students here at Kent State. Here's what they think.
I believe in campus carry because I believe that gun rights are an extension of property rights, which are an extension of individual rights. And without individual rights or property rights, you cannot have a right to life.
This is where I spend most of my time. I'm going to for the next couple of years, and I feel like this is where I should be able to protect myself if I need to.
We should pass campus carry because under the Second Amendment of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, it says that Americans should keep and bear arms, and I feel like that should be a right as a student and every student on this campus.
I believe that we should have campus carry because it's at an unprecedented level of safety that we currently do not have in our pockets right now.
I support campus carry because I believe that you're either a gun owner or a victim.
I support campus carry because we have the right to do so.
And I support campus carry so I can ensure the safety of myself and the other students on campus.
I also believe that it's my own property and I should be able to defend myself, not
only from just people on campus, just in general. I should be able to open carry and express my own rights.
So I support campus carry because it's a constitutionally protected right that doesn't end when you step on campus. And I support carry on campus because I think the university is a place like any other place. And we should be allowed to have whatever rights we have in the real world here on campus.
I support campus carry because people have the right to defend themselves and feel safe against people trying to do them harm.
It's already legal in Ohio, and at this point, it's literally just the university blocking students of their Second Amendment right, and it should not be infringed, including by the university that they're paying.
I'm a concealed carry holder, and why can't I carry anywhere else but here?
I support campus carry because it's a necessary human right for all students.
I think we should be allowed to have campus carry because we all have the right to bear arms and protect ourselves.
If you have a right to life and a right to defend that life, then you should be allowed to do that wherever you wish, even if it's on university campus.
Instead of running a blue light on campus, why not just go in your pocket, go for protection to do it yourself? It's for everyone. Get out there and use your Second Amendment rights.
I'm so proud of them. I'm like a proud mom. You guys did so good. So yeah, that kind of concludes our presentation to you guys. And we will move into the Q&A. If anyone has any questions, even if you agree, raise your hand and Michael will come around with, someone will come around with a mic. Someone has to have a question. You need a mic? Yeah, you're like right here.
It might help for the live stream.
So you were saying before you don't believe that anyone should be able to tell you what you can't own. You were kind of saying, I shouldn't be allowed to be told I'm not allowed to own a pistol or rifle. Obviously, I think we all in our mind have common sense enough to know where that ends. Okay, take it to an extreme. You don't want people having dirty bombs in the basement of their house. Okay, like it makes sense, and I think we all, like, if we're using common sense, we can reason that. I think we need to talk about where that line ends. You don't see people, stop stashing RPGs in the basement of their house, and obviously that's an extreme. But where does that line end when it comes to guns, in your opinion?
So that is an extreme, and I'm going to go flip side of the extreme that I believe it is someone's right to own those weapons that you just talked about. Actually, Eric Swalwell from California, he was a Democrat. He's a congressman, and he actually just tried to sarcastically say that if gun owners in America don't give up their rights, don't give up their firearms, that the U.S. could nuke us to get us to do what they wanted us to do. If a congressman is going to sit there and he says he was joking, but I really wouldn't put it past the government to do something like that, destroy their own country to go after their citizens, then we should be able to go back after the government with the same exact weaponry. They have all kinds of insane things that they're using on, innocent kids and children and women in other countries. So what makes you think it won't happen to us? We should be able to fight with the exact same type of arms that the government has.
I do agree. So to an extent, I look at our government, and our government's corrupt as shit, in my opinion. It is wildly, ripping us blind at every corner. And, I do believe in the Second Amendment rights. I'm not going to say no. But also, I think there's a common level, common sense that needs to be passed.
So I'm going to stop you right there. What common sense do we need to pass that's already not on the books?
So I do think that we need stricter background checks, and also in certain states there's the ability to, if you feel that someone is not mentally sound enough to own a gun, you can go to the courts, you can go to a doctor and have them, sign a slip saying, I don't believe this person should own a gun, they're not mentally sound. And my father was a gun owner, okay? Well, my father is very old, I'm adopted, 76 years old, and he has Alzheimer's, okay? He got to the point where he is not mentally sound enough to own a gun. We turned that firearm into the police. Now, there might be a situation where there's not a responsible person in the home to say, hey, you're not mentally sound enough, you're too old, you're, going through some stuff, you need to give that gun away. So I think we need to have measures in place where that can happen, where we can, check to evaluate whether someone should have a gun or not. Because, an hour ago, somebody just opened fire in a hospital in Chicago, killed 4 people. Like, 30 minutes to an hour ago. How do we stop that? And, it's a gray area. I don't think the answer is black and white, but I'd like to talk about, doing something about it rather than just not doing anything at all.
So what you mentioned are red flag gun laws, actually, that's what they're called. And in Florida, I think it's over 200 or 300 people who did not go through due process, got their firearms taken from them. I think it was in Maryland, the cops actually shot someone because they wanted to take his firearms, and he went through no due process to have that red flag gun law work against him. There's no due process. He didn't stand in front of a judge and say, hey, I'm fine to have my firearms. Like, what are you talking about? There was none of that. They shot him because he wouldn't give up his firearms. So I know what you're saying. In the first part, you say, we need the family to go in there, but what if there isn't that family? The point is that there should be that family. Kids, 50 years ago, even 30, 40 years ago, they used to take their shotguns to school. And so if there are actually shotguns and guns in the school, why aren't school shootings worse then than they are now? It's not the firearm, it's the people, and I definitely agree with you that there needs to be more of a family structure to keep an eye on each other, but we shouldn't be asking the government to have that place to do that. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I guess just in time, because it's not, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, I guess just to add on to that point too, it's that, you mentioned how there needs to be that family structure. I believe 26 of the last 27 mass shooters were without fathers. So that's a pretty telltale sign there.
No, I definitely agree with that. There's a lot of issues that go into play. Also, in the beginning, you talked about property rights. You don't believe that anybody should be able to take your property. I kind of have the view that, like, our founding fathers, number one, they didn't believe, they thought black people were 3/5 of a person. They didn't believe that you, right now, counted as a full person. They didn't even believe white males, unless you own property or educated, should be able to vote. So I don't think they all had it together entirely. And, times have changed. We don't have the same laws that we did back then. And I usually compare it to cars. Okay, should anybody just be allowed to, use a piece of machinery that has the potential to kill a lot of people without regulation?
So it's funny you bring that up because more cars actually kill more people than firearms every year.
I'm aware of that. And
Yeah.
also, but I think we need better, driving laws too. I believe that we need more restrictions on who gets on the wheel of a car and how long they have to train. In other countries, they have a lot less car deaths because they go through more intense driver safety programs. But I look at that and I compare it to gun laws. Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, but I hear the argument a lot that a lot of people, when the founders wrote the Constitution, they thought black people were 3/5 of a person, or women couldn't vote, only white people had this, or whatever, but we've amended everything to be able to include all of those types of people, and thankfully so, because everybody deserves the same rights in the Constitution, as the founders originally said. But the point of the matter is, the Constitution doesn't give us our rights, so every person is already afforded those rights when they're born. The Constitution just says that the government can't infringe upon them. And so I don't want to make this just a back and forth and have people listen to us talk or anything. But if you want to respond to that, you definitely can. But is there anyone else?
There's just one thing. There's just one point I want to add on to that too, because a lot of the concerns that you have obviously are real concerns. We come from the point that these concerns are amplified when it comes to the government. So take all those same concerns you had, and let's say, what happens if the government gets these weapons? What happens if the government has the ability to do this? And it's so much more dangerous because they have a monopoly on that power over those weapons. As we can see, they create war, they create famine, they create mass murder. It's so much worse when they have these types of things than when any private citizen does.
And I do believe that, for the most part, people that are advocating for gun rights are also very supportive of the military. They believe in a huge budget for the military and, you know,
We do not.
advanced, okay, and so advanced weapons for all of our troops and everything. And I did an interview with an NRA member. He's the owner of 3 Tango Firearms Academy in Twinsburg. He was in the service for, 12 years. His job was a firearms instructor in the service. He's out now. He's a member of the NRA. And he said, I ask all my friends from the Army all the time, like, if they came for our guns, like, are you gonna stand there and try and fight them off? And they're like, heck no. Their weapons are way too advanced. We've already given them, like, so much money to, create those weapons, and they have that monopoly. So, in my opinion, what's the point even now? Because your AR-15s, all that, it's not gonna do much when they come rolling in with tanks.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But at the same time, I view that and I say, so should we all just give AR-15s down the line, and who decides who's unstable enough where they shouldn't have that firearm? That's my thing, because I don't believe everyone in this room probably is there mentally enough to own a firearm. There's got to be a few people in here that shouldn't, for whatever reason, health issues, mental health, depression, anxiety, whatever, shouldn't have a gun. And how are you, like, I know how I would decide that. Is there any way that you guys would go through that and try and figure
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this, and then we can go to another person that might have a question. So I should have talked about it up there when I had gun laws and I had a background check listed as the most common forms of gun control. I don't believe it's the government's right to enforce background checks, to say, oh, did you do this, have you done this, check, check, check. If you say no, then you don't get to have a firearm, especially regarding felonies and felons. There are nonviolent felons that, you can have a felony for a plant, a drug, when that absolutely is so ridiculous. But you commit a nonviolent crime, a nonviolent offense, there is no victim, you're still a felon. So right there, the government's already got it wrong. Where I come from is get rid of the government perspective of that, get rid of the government component, let private firearm businesses conduct their own background checks. I work in a gun store, I work at Pro Armament in Cuyahoga Falls. We do our own background checks sometimes in addition to what we have to get from the FBI. We have, in some instances, found more than what the FBI has. This guy got a green light to proceed to buy a handgun. We thought he looked a little fishy, so we dug ourselves a little bit more. He was convicted and charged with domestic violence, but the FBI was going to let him have a firearm. We did our own digging, and we found our own problems with that guy, and that's how the system should be. Because in the free market, you have incentives. You have to have a good business. You have to have a good record. You have to know what you're doing, and that's literally how the free market works. So, kind of ties in a little bit of capitalism, free market into that, and that's my answer. Does anybody else have a different question?
That's not really a question. Referring to what's going on here. The statement he said, he referred to the driver safety of other countries being better than here, or driving records. But somebody said that the key thing was through driver safety programs, not through driver safety laws. So that's what I think we're trying to do here today is education. So I think it's the better education, the driver programs or what have you. So,
that's where I get it from. Good job, man. He had his hand up there.
Okay. Over here. You might want to make a quick comment on the last question here.
Sure.
As someone who has worked 3 years so far in the medical field and medical institutions, and hopefully going forward that'll continue. Most hospitals are gun-free zones, and they don't allow employees, anyone to have them in there. So then you can bring the question is, if it's my job to protect and do what's right for my patients, and a gunman comes in, why am I not allowed to protect my patients? As well as you mentioned that in Chicago, who has some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, so you mentioned how you believe that private businesses should on their own do background checks of gun owners, and rather than the government doing so. And I understand your reasoning for that is that you say in the free market, those people would have an incentive to make sure bad people don't get guns, as if bad people buy their guns, people who would ruin their company's name. But that might not, but with a completely deregulated process as you suggest, how certain would it be that the public would know who sold them that gun? And as a company, wouldn't they have any, like if they didn't lack moral standards and all they cared about was to make the most money off of guns as possible? In what ways do you have to keep the government, use the government as a way to keep companies accountable if they do allow the wrong people to have guns?
So, does a car dealership get in trouble when someone buys their car and goes and runs over a bunch of people?
No, because the car dealerships currently don't have the responsibility of determining who can and cannot drive cars.
What you're describing is people just getting guns out and not checking, or maybe they don't have the right system in place to know who they're selling guns to. You just described gangs. That's what you just described. That's already happening. There's already laws against that, and that's not stopping people who shouldn't have guns from getting guns. So when I talk about background checks not working, or they shouldn't come from the government, there are so many pieces and parts that have to work to go into the FBI to make a background check actually work. And I have experience from this too. At the gun store that I work at, a woman came in, she had a green light to go ahead and buy a firearm. Later we found out she ended up actually killing herself with that firearm that she bought from us. And we did a little more digging. Actually, the mental health department, or whatever agency it was, should have reported to the FBI that this woman was not fit to have a gun. But they didn't do that, because our government is so competent. A government that can't even fill in a pothole on Main Street should not be telling you guys or me or any adult what we can and cannot have. They're incompetent as it is. And if you think that the 20,000 gun laws that we have on the books right now isn't enough, then what do we do?
I'm not saying I agree with all 20,000 of the gun laws. I just don't know about your particular proposal of privatizing all background checks. Like if you know somebody's been talking about killing someone, like where would in your most ideal system, how would you want how would you want people to be able to contact companies? There has to be some kind of centralized system where people can contact and be like, I know this person has problems. And I agree with you that they should have due process. They should go into courts and this can be proven that they have problems. But with your system, who would people report to?
Report to the firearms company.
But there's multiple firearms companies.
Yeah, so we're not going to, if you're in Zanesville and you know someone that shouldn't have a gun, or maybe a company shouldn't buy a gun or shouldn't sell a gun too, you're not going to call California and say, hey, there's this guy. You're going to know the firearm companies in the area that you're going to call and be like, hey, I don't think this guy should have a gun. That's what we should be reporting things to, is each other. And I'm not saying that we need to get rid of the police, because the police play an important job in solving crimes and making sure, that rapists are caught and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it just shouldn't be the government's role to go in there and say, oh, your brother, George over here said that you weren't supposed to have a gun, or you're not fit to have a gun, so please give me your guns.
Yeah,
That's not right.
It shouldn't be on that loose. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick too. I almost think that when the government sets standards, it's actually going to decrease the company's level of accountability, because when we look at the instances that she described, we can just pin those instances and blame the government for it. We can say the FBI didn't do their job, health services didn't do their job. If it's solely going to be the responsibility of the company, don't you think they're going to bear more of that on their shoulders?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how much the public's able to know, which, I truly don't know. I haven't seen that test results haven't come back yet. That hasn't been done. Your suggested policy hasn't been done yet, so I wouldn't know for sure. But my inkling would be that you need some kind of centralized process. You said, well, you wouldn't contact somebody in California. But people can drive. They can go to other states, and ultimately, I think you can still want some kind of centralized system. That's all I'm going to say for here, and let somebody else ask some questions.
Thanks.
I think the problem here too is that, we're going to be dealing a lot in hypotheticals, and we can't answer every hypothetical. There's no way to know. So simply put, that's why we want to come from the perspective that these are our rights, they should not be taken away, and we shouldn't be punishing innocent people for the crimes that others commit.
And especially for things that happen in such a small percentage, you know, we have to weigh, that's what comes with living in a free society. Bad things happen. You can't stop every bad thing from happening. But at what point do you say, okay, we're going to give this to the government to try to solve? Like I said, they can even fill in potholes. Why are we going to let them try to solve that for us?
So, I just kind of have like 2 points. The first one, I keep bringing up arguments about like, talking about cars and that like cars kill more people than guns. I just don't completely agree that that's a fair argument because like cars weren't invented to kill people, just like trains and planes, they were invented for transportation, where guns were invented for warfare and to take lives. So I understand the statistics and like how you can use that in an argument. Personally, that doesn't really do anything for me.
So that's your first point. I'm going to interrupt you before I lose my point. So you made a good point there. Guns were made to kill people, but cars weren't, and they still do more damage than guns. That's very telling. That guns, like you said, if you want to go with the argument, they were made to kill people, you're not wrong. Cars weren't, but they still do more damage. Go ahead with your point.
That's fair, but I mean also things like vending machines kill people every year. So like car accidents, like people die in cars because of drunk driving, a whole lot of other issues that I think are problems, and just like there's a lot of issues around driving. But besides that point, I think a lot of your arguments, I don't know a lot about guns. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about that. But like any disputes I would have with your arguments or any reasons I would disagree, which I'm perfectly fine with agreeing to disagree on things, is just that I think personally trust the government more than individual people. Like there are a lot of people that I know personally, like best friends, that I wouldn't trust with a firearm. I don't think they're smart enough or competent enough. So I don't.
Would you trust those friends to run an entire government and the military?
No, but they're not.
So then don't you see how that's problematic if you say you trust the government more?
I wouldn't vote for those people though.
But other people do. So it's not just one person voting on something, it affects them. It affects the entire country, especially when people from certain states are voting in certain congressmen that are going to enact legislation. So, that's kind of a rebuttal of that, I guess.
I think that's why we have a republic, and that's why we live in a government where we elect officials to make decisions for us. And that's where I just don't agree with the point made over there about having individual business owners, because you see with like food restaurants, a lot of them make food violations and like it goes by unnoticed, and like Chipotle, people got salmonella and had issues from Chipotle. Like they fixed it and they were accountable, but there are plenty of other businesses that aren't accountable. So there are, I believe, gun salesmen who would be accountable and good people who would do it, but same as the point over there, I don't believe that all individuals are that accountable, just like I don't think everyone should be trusted with a gun. I don't think all businesses can be run without some sort of regulation and control. Kind of like a lot of cigarette advertisements, if those weren't regulated by the government and like by organizations, then there would probably still be advertisements saying that it's healthy for you and that you can be cool for smoking. So I think there is a need for government involvement in issues and with guns. I don't think all the laws currently in place are correct and should be in place, but I do think we need government involvement in these issues because I don't think individuals can handle it.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Are you familiar with who Alex Jones is?
Yes.
Can you tell me what social media platforms he's left on? None. So doesn't that go to show that maybe boycotts are an effective tool for people who are doing things that, you can argue one way or another about Alex Jones, but obviously it was perceived by those people that he was not someone who should have his opinions and business put out there.
I also want to respond. You saying that if we didn't have the government regulating tobacco ads or anything like that, then people would still be thinking it's healthy for you. I've seen several ads, especially from organizations that put young people out there that are saying, we need to be the generation that ends smoking. That is a private company right there going out there and changing the stigma, saying smoking is bad, it's not cool. So right there, I think you brought up another good example of how it's actually working. And no, and I'll be honest, I don't think a tobacco company should be that heavily regulated because it's their property. It's what people want to buy. It's kind of the same thing with drugs.
Well, that's where, yes, there are the advertisements saying that smoking is bad, but I'm not saying that we would still believe that it's healthy, but I think it would still be promoted in that way so I was just trying to make an example that I think there are people that would take it a bad way and a good way. Like in Europe, when cigarettes are sold, a lot of times they're sold with packagings that have like dead fetuses and things like that on it to show how terrible it is as you're buying it. And guns, they're just not. They're regulated by the government, but it's a lot more, like your argument about concealed carry. I would personally like someone that wants to have a firearm and be able to have it concealed. I think they should have, you have to go through more processes to be able to conceal a firearm like that.
So the only thing that the classes and the extra learning does, a concealed carry class, only teaches you about the laws. That's not a training class. That's making sure that you understand the laws. And so really I guess in some states, that's different, but here in Ohio, it's only about the laws. It doesn't make you safer. You're safe as it is having your firearm. If you get to pass a background check when you purchase a firearm, you should definitely be able just to put it under your shirt.
I don't think the regulations, the laws on concealed carry, I don't think it's about your own, I agree it doesn't affect your own safety at all. I think it's more about other people, because then, they know you have, if you wear it on your hip because you don't have concealed carry, people know you have a firearm with you. And if you've gone through and you know the laws and you have it concealed, then I don't know. It just seems more appropriate that you should have there should be some kind of regulation that I just can't walk around with a gun in my waistband. I just don't think that's appropriate.
I'm going to agree to disagree with you. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, I didn't really have a question, but I'd like to respond to him now. So you're telling me you're going to go up and attack somebody that you can't see their firearm? I mean, that's basically what you're saying, because, you're saying if you're wearing it on the outside, then you know not to attack that person, but if they got it on the inside of the shirt where you can't see it, then it's okay to attack that person and then end up getting shot. I mean,
it's not about attacking anybody. I don't think guns as a deterrent. If you have it concealed, I think it's just more of the fact.
I don't think I just don't agree that it has to do with that. If I see someone that has a gun, the thought that goes through my head isn't oh, I'm not going to attack that person or mess with that person. They have a gun. In my head, I'm worried because that person has a firearm, and I know they have a firearm. When I see somebody walking around with a firearm, as a citizen, I've never owned a gun. Nobody in my family owns a gun. I've shot guns before, but I just don't trust other people with firearms, and to have that other people can just carry it around concealed, and I wouldn't see it. And there's no regulation on that. I'm just not comfortable with that because I don't trust other people.
I guess you wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
But what I'm not comfortable with is you taking away other people's rights. Isn't that? Do you think
Just because you're uncomfortable with it, that's fine. Then don't carry a gun. But something that I try to explain to people regarding campus carry is that a lot of times they say, I'm not comfortable. Well, it's simply not about you. And I'm not trying to be mean, or I'm just trying to be honest that it's not about you. Just because your feelings and what you experience and you might feel uncomfortable does not dictate Justin over here to say, well, sorry, Johnny feels upset, so you can't have that gun in the waistband. And I'm not trying to be insulting at all. I'm just trying to get it through that maybe that's why we have all these discussions and why we have these problems with gun control is because of the stigma around guns and gun owners, because it didn't used to be like that. But, is there any, yes?
Mine's just kind of a response to him.
Okay.
Not to be mean, but if you don't own a gun or
none of your family owns a gun, what makes your statements relevant? Like, what makes you think you know a lot about, like, so much about it if you don't know?
I don't know anything. Like, I have very little knowledge about the guns. The guns I've fired before were muzzle-loading rifles with black powder. Like, I used to do pioneer reenactments. Like, that's what I've fired before, 45 caliber. So, like, that's, I'm just a citizen, and if I know other people are gonna have guns, like, I'm a citizen of the country as much as anybody else. So, like, my opinion maybe doesn't matter in the terms of, like, what guns I like, just what I know about guns, but as a citizen, I feel like I do have a right to have an opinion about these kinds of things.
You do have a right to an opinion, but you don't have the right to infringe on somebody else's right, which is their ability to carry a firearm. I know exactly what you're saying. I want to point out that a lot of question and answers usually have someone up there in the microphone talking to the speaker, but I actually love that you guys are talking to each other, because that's what we wanted to do in September. And it couldn't happen because people wanted to be violent. So this proves that dialogue can happen on a college campus. So talk to each other. That's great. I think it's awesome. Does anybody else have? Oh, you have to make it.
In response to your comment, I believe, you don't have to own a gun or have family members or even fire a gun to have an opinion or be relevant, because the truth is that we're affected by gun violence and gun rights and gun control, even if we don't own guns. Okay, it still affects us. Just because you're not using your First Amendment right doesn't mean that it's not important. Second Amendment right, same thing. You made a mention before about our government being, I said corrupt, you said incompetent, same. They are both. And, that's a different topic that goes into our voting process, and I do believe it is screwed, and it was designed that way. Money and politics, all this, all these other topics, they affect that, and they affect the people running our government and their ability to make good decisions when it comes to our rights. But I think we go back to a few basic arguments, very vague general ideas, communism versus the corner of fascism with, democracy in the middle. Everything's, it's not a black-white issue, it's a gray, and it's a scale. But there's a few topics that I think, we need to get right on the track of privatization of, the gun industry is what you were talking about. And someone back there made a comment about they don't think that would work. But at the end of the day, I have like two questions. Can you give me a clear-cut answer on who do you believe should have gun rights? And second, do you believe, can you tell me there should be no regulations whatsoever, but if there are regulations, who do you believe should be able to do that? And if that's a private company, so if you have a private company regulating, gun owners, gun sellers versus government, what makes that private company, which gets the power that the government wants to have, what makes them any more competent or able to regulate?
So your first question was who should have gun rights. It's not a question of who should, it's who does have gun rights. Not every person in this world has gun rights. There's some countries that don't afford them that, but everyone does. It's not even who should. Everyone does have gun rights, and more importantly, they have the right to self-defense. So we could take away the guns. It's the right to self-defense. So everyone has the right to self-defense. But if we want to specifically talk about firearms, so if we want to specifically talk about firearms and regulation, you kind of already know my answers. Yes, that should be privatized, and no, the government should not be in charge of something like that. The guys that I work with at the store, and no, this does not mean every store is like that. They know what they're talking about. When I showed you the sign up there about the pistol, the short-barreled rifle, and the standard AR-15, that makes no sense. Those are the laws that are on the books today. The guys that actually sell them, that actually fire them, actually carry them with them every day, they know what they're talking about. Politicians up there making laws, classifying literally a short-barreled rifle with a different stock on the end as a pistol, they have no idea what they're doing. It's incompetence, like I said, and there's a difference between corruption and incompetence. Incompetence is not knowing what you're doing. The system isn't working because we have stupid people in our government corruption is people know what they're doing and they're working the system so that they can be corrupt. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that, you know, you say who should have gun rights. My question would be, who can take away someone's rights? And like we began, it's not that there's necessarily that there's a gun right. It's that you have a right to your life, you have a right to your property. Ultimately, when it comes down to regulation, no, I don't think anyone has the right to take away someone's property. The same way you as an individual don't have the right to take away someone's phone in this room. I don't think you as an individual have the right to take away someone's firearm. So if that's not a right you already have, I don't believe that you then are magically given a right to vote on this to give to the government. If we're going to talk about who's going to regulate that, I think everyone's going to want to regulate their own property because it's all run by incentives. You want to maintain a good reputation both for yourself and for your company.
Yeah, I want to reword that first question. I kind of messed that one up because I don't want to speak in hypotheticals because this happens and we saw an example again today. You know, maybe not who should have gun rights, but who shouldn't. Because there are people.
So I just want to clarify our terms because can we both agree that you have a right to life and property? So when you say who shouldn't have gun rights, do you mean who should have their rights taken away? Can you just clarify that a little more?
Let's just say.
In terms of the things we can agree on.
You know, I think we agreed that, you know, there's a level of background checks that we should pass. You work at a gun store that passes background checks. Like you were saying, like you did private, whatever, but some form. You did your digging, you found out some person shouldn't have a gun. Am I fair to say that? You determined in your head that there are some instances, you know, if you have a convicted rapist, if you have a convicted child abuser or domestic violence or whatever, you and a lot of us can agree that person should not have a gun.
Right.
I don't even know if they should be on the street.
Exactly. So if that person shouldn't have a gun, they get their hands on a gun, which is not a hypothetical, it happens every day in this country. Who then, in your opinion, is going to take that gun away?
So that's where you come back to the family structure. And, you know, when we say that the government doesn't have the right to take your property, I mean, honestly, Justin doesn't really have the right to take my property either. But that's where the family structure comes in. That's why we have so many kids that are hopped up on these drugs and go to the doctor just prescribes some drugs. And we're not taking care of each other as a society, as a family. We've lost the family structure, and a lot of it has to do with, honestly, the liberals and the leftists that want to tear down traditional family value or family structure and what morals are and what is right and what is wrong. But, you know, it comes back to the family. Delegate that to the family to look after one another. We need to come back to, you know, saying that it's okay that we care about each other. I tell you what, being on Twitter has got to be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Because people are nasty on Twitter. They're so nasty. And I've seen just from when I was in high school versus now, I thought college would be better. It's honestly worse, and it's worse because of social media, and it's the way we treat each other, because we think, oh, there's the Kent State gun girl, I'm going to say she has ramen noodle here, and I'm going to get 10,000 likes on my comment. And then they're like, oh, I like that attention, I like the 10,000 likes, they're making fun of this girl, making her feel bad about it. So, no, I don't feel bad about my ramen noodle hair. So I get 10 comments a day, or compliments a day on it. But it's the fact that we foster an environment now based on bullying, and especially cyberbullying, and it goes down to how we feel about ourselves and how we make other people feel. And we think it's just online, that it really doesn't affect a person, but there is someone behind that account that tens of thousands of people are ganging up on. So.
I just want to briefly touch on your question too, the hypotheticals you posed. And something that we haven't discussed up here is that we still do believe in policing and rule of law. So if there is an individual who, you know, is suspected of trying to infringe on someone else's rights, I believe that's someone that should be apprehended and brought to justice. That's something that we haven't discussed, that, like I said, no individual has the right to take away someone else's property. If someone's threatening that, I believe that something should be done because they don't have that right.
So you believe in policing, which is a form of government. That is
I personally believe in private policing, which is just a whole other discussion. It'll take a lot of time.
But you see, this conversation is just, what if this, what if that? And that's really what this conversation is about. But we do know what is in place, what gun control laws aren't working, and I guess you know, maybe the conversation should delve into right now what we have and what it isn't working, and why would we continue to go forward with it. So I appreciate the discussion back and forth. I hope we're not boring everybody. Okay.
Sorry. I wanted to go back to the gentleman up here too. He said that,
Ganging up
sorry,
on
buddy, I'm
you.
not trying to gang up on you, but your first statement was the guns were designed to kill people. Absolutely not. They were designed for survival and eating. They were not designed to kill people. Man turned them into that, yes. But, you know, that's not what they were originally designed for. They were for survival.
Well, they were designed for, I should have phrased it, they were designed for, like, purposes of taking some form of life and inflicting harm on, like.
So putting food on your table is a bad thing?
No, but like I said that because of like this argument about vehicles. Like vehicles weren't designed to harm anybody or anything. They do, and like they harm the environment with like gas. Like you can say vehicles kill more people than guns, but just the only reason I said that was because guns were designed to inflict harm on living beings and things, whereas cars were not. So when you're selling a car, you're selling a mode of transportation to a person. When you're selling a gun to someone, you're selling something that, like, it's a weapon. It was made.
But you're looking at everything as it harming something, but you gotta look at the things that it protects, that it saves. I mean, it saves way more than it harms. You know,
Yes,
statistically, but, I'm sorry. But anyway, the young lady here, you know, she made the comment about, you know, you're not educated on guns for the family or what have you, and so, you know, where do you really feel that you have a voice, on the subject? But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's all right, that's freedom of speech, right?
I totally agree.
I wanna add to that, just because something was invented, you know, if you think it was invented to kill, well, we have to look at it too is, what does the user assign label to it? So a cell phone was invented to make calls. For us, we use it for social media. Mike over here may use it for email. Everyone's going to assign a different value to it. And for most people in this country, they assign the use of self-defense to it, or hunting.
Yeah, not everybody does that though.
Right, and listen, you and I were the same 3 years ago. Kaitlin she didn't grow up in a home with guns. I was scared of guns. I was nervous. You know why? Because I was uneducated. I didn't grow up in a family with guns. And I think the majority of the people in here, especially the young people, you guys, when you grow, you go on, you move on, you have families, you have things that are more important than you in your life, you're gonna find every way you can to defend and protect those, you know, those things. You know, so that when we had the gun march and stuff, that's what I was thinking. I was watching the young people over there, man, doing their thing, and I guarantee you, 50% of those people that were up there going through their thing, someday they're going to have something so important in their life that they're going to do whatever it is it takes to defend them. You know, because that's what it's all about, right? Yeah. But I was you. I was there. That was you like 2 years ago. So,
My issue isn't with guns themselves, it's with the people who have, some people who have guns, because I don't believe everyone, like, not everyone should carry around a knife. Like, I don't think everyone should have, like, a weapon. Like, I just don't trust, my sister is, she went to classes for concealed carry, she wants to purchase a gun. Her owning a gun scares me, because she's not always, like, the smartest about what she does.
Exactly.
That's why my issue isn't not with guns, it's with people. And that's why I think we need regulations is for people, not for the firearms themselves. And I think that's why background checks.
Yeah, so Kaitlin, that's one thing how Kaitlin was, she advocated for the person, the law-abiding citizen that wants to protect herself. So, you know, me being a couple of years older, you know, I've seen a lot of things that made me concerned about, you know, the person that's not, you know, the law-abiding citizen. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, they already have a gun if that's what they want to get, or they're going to find it, you know. So I think the laws or what have you, you know, so it helped me understand, you know, the other side, because I was just like you. So.
I'm glad that this has turned to Kate and her dad's speech here, they said. But, you know, they talk about, I do want to give a statistic real quick. I know you have a mic, 1 second. He talks about all the people that it saves, and that's true. If we retail suicides, 13,000 people to 16,000 people die every year due to gun homicides, compared to at least 500,000 lives that are saved every year due to defensive use of firearms, and that number goes clear up to 3 million. That's very telling. If you don't want to look at what is moral and just and giving people the right to self-defense, maybe it'll impact you more if we give statistics about that, but go ahead.
Well, I just want to make a comment to raise awareness that, like when it comes to using guns for self-defense, it's not just simply about having a gun, it's also knowing how to use it. And you mentioned earlier the concurrent concealed carry license, they just informed me about the laws about the matter, which is important if you can have the license, but also, it would be good if it was actually trained, taught you how to defend yourself. Because, for example, at the famous Las Vegas shootings where around 60 people died, it was a country concert, so naturally the culture around those that participate in country concerts, they concealed carry a lot. And it turns out that the only people who were really able to help in that situation were military personnel who had military training and knew how to use their guns. So maybe if you just make a couple comments on, you have a gun, but how can we do better in making sure those that have guns and are responsible, same people, are trained in knowing how to actually use them when the situation actually arises?
So where does the line get drawn that if he goes through training, but I don't, how is my life any less important to where I have to get government permission to continue with
I'm not saying
training?
anything about...
But it does, it delves back into that argument that the government should not have to put, hey, you have to go through this, and you have to be able to do these certain things to carry your firearm. It's not a right that the government has, that's an infringement.
I never said that I want the government to be the entity doing this. I'm just saying, you think generally we need more informational courses on how to actually defend ourselves in these situations. I think the gun community needs more courses on actual...
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. The more courses, the merrier. That is totally fine. Just don't make the government mandate them. And I'm sorry if I confused your question, but I will never say that gun training is a bad thing, because it's not. You should be comfortable with your weapon. You should be comfortable with your weapon enough that you have one in the chamber and you don't need it on safety, because you should be able to handle it that well. But the fact of the matter is, if someone doesn't want to go through with that, then that doesn't mean the right to self-defense ends. And I hope I answered your question.
I mean, it wasn't really a question, it's like a comment that makes people know. You gun, you also need to know how to use it. Then one other comment that's just comical and has no other purpose but just to tell it, is it's kind of ironic. On my way coming in here, I had a pocket knife and I had to go hide it behind a tree somewhere because I couldn't bring it in here and I didn't want to walk over the line.
There's officers everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to be followed out here,
yeah, I know. But I just wanted to make that. It's kind of ironic. Yeah, but anyway, that's all I just said.
And I'm going to hold you responsible for that, because what if someone shouldn't have that, but they find it and they go stab somebody with it? Are you now responsible?
I mean, that's his own personal choice. If I doubt somebody's going to put it in a tree or a pocket.
No, but they might find it. But hopefully they don't. Hopefully it's still there when we get it back. Oh, yes, sorry.
Hi. Okay, so I just want to
Mike.
we're good. I just want to switch the gears a little bit, because we started this conversation about campus carry.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to turn it to K through 12 schooling. What's your standpoint? Because I want to be an educator, so I'm all for if I as a teacher feel that I am willing, able, and want to go through that and carry within my classroom on a safety standard for my students. What is your guys' personal opinion on should that be something that we're allowing?
So, and that goes back to campus carry too. It's not that we arm every teacher, because there are some teachers that shouldn't be armed. If they shouldn't be armed, they shouldn't be teaching your kids, to be honest.
Exactly.
But, if we're not saying, here, give every student a gun, give every teacher a gun, it's if they are competent, if they are able, let them carry. If they already have permission from the government to protect themselves and their kids at home, why can't they protect the kids that they're teaching for a couple, not a couple, because school is really long, but, however many hours, grade school is in for. So, why not? And that's something that some schools have actually adopted, and I think that's great, especially with privatizing schools, you could get more done with that.
I think something too that's a little separate but equally as important is when it comes to children and firearms. I think that it's very important that instead of teaching children about the dangers of firearms and about why we need to control them, we should be teaching them responsibility. Because the fact of the matter is that anything can be turned into a weapon. This microphone, your cell phone, anything. We don't teach kids to be afraid of microphones. We should be teaching them about the dangers of people who want to infringe on our rights. And when it comes to firearms, teach them how to responsibly use them.
Statistically, because I like statistics, we should be teaching them to be more afraid of cleaning products, beauty products, pools, hammers, and fists.
And Tide Pods.
Well, now it's tampon juice, if you guys heard that one. Apparently people are getting drunk off of tampons. Or whatever, though.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm gonna do two things. A, I'm gonna take the heat further off of you. I might even bring it on myself. So I'm pro-gun. I'll start off with that. I think it's that for the walking out, I actually kind of touched on it. So I don't really think wholeheartedly we're victims of gun violence. I think we're victims of no gun zones. Every single mass shooting you look at is in a soft target. Every single one of them. The nightclubs, the schools, public buildings, every time you look at one, even that country music concert that was attacked and 60-something people killed. Sure, there was military personnel there, there was military guys there was even police there. However, the one thing that was missing that could have been key in the defense was the firearms. Because that was a no-gun zone. The fact that students can't carry here who everywhere else can legally carry, anywhere else, kind of makes us a no-gun zone when you think about it. Now, I'm going to be thankful to the leaders we have here protecting us tonight. However, I don't totally think that it's the guns that are the problem, it's the people in the no-gun zones, because they're soft targets. Take a moment and think about it. If you're planning out an attack and you want to cause as much damage as you can, and we look at the hospital in Chicago this evening, no gun zone, a lot of people there, perfect target. Why are you not going to go to where you know you can inflict damage and you know police are minutes away? I'm just saying, it's not necessarily a gun problem, it's a people problem and a no gun zone problem.
absolutely. The statistic he's talking about is 98% of mass shootings have happened in gun-free zones since 1950. So yes, your philosophy and the statistics back it up. So yeah, does anybody else that's, I love your discussions, but I want to make sure that other people can talk too.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out, I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
But going back to, I can't remember if you brought up the argument, regulating gun laws should be up to like, say, like private industry, say like Clockers, Western or something. Personally, I feel as if like we go too far to one political ideology, say capitalism or communism, there's going to be flaws. I don't think there's ever been like full communism. I think it's always been socialism. But do you think if we let those companies get power, that we could move into more like anarcho-capitalistic or like?
Hopefully.
I mean, like, I think I would like, I sleep well, and I know I live in a capitalistic society. That's just my opinion. I think, like, personally, like, communism, like, in small groups would be, like, perfect, like, family-oriented communism or something like that. Like, I mean, if the family, like, if I eat the family, it's, like, pretty much something, like, that's my ideology.
Consensual.
Exactly, yeah. But do you think that, if we went anarcho-capitalistic, that, like, we would have the same problems with those companies, like, the companies becoming the governments or something like that? Like,
So I'm gonna let him answer that. If he actually identifies, you don't want to assume anything. He identifies as an anarcho-capitalist. I'm just a libertarian. I'm not as far as that, but I will let him answer that.
Sure. I think we can have a one-on-one after this, in more detail, just so we don't go over too many people's heads, but just to kind of give a brief answer to that question. Ultimately, what the worries that you have, a monopoly of power, that's already in existence with the government. So the fears that you have, they're already there, and we see that they're not working. So I think that if we're able to decentralize and have more competition, more accountability, we wouldn't exactly be seeing those types of things arising. And it would be, in all obviously a lot more difficult to see a conglomeration of power into just one hand.
Thank you. Another question too, Kaitlin, I noticed like, over the internet, like you become kind of like a meme. All respects to that. Going back to like Alex Jones getting like debunked off the platforms, do you worry about yourself becoming like, I feel like Alex Jones is just a new Sam Hyde pretty much, whereas he got like blacklisted and everything because of his political affiliations when it was all comedy. Personally, I don't take Alex Jones 100% seriously. I think it's you ever seen the movie Signs?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think of it like that. Like, I don't take it all too seriously. I think he has some good points. I don't agree with everything that he says, but the fact that they took away that platform, those were private-based companies. Well, they're public now because of the stock trading.
Thank you for knowing that.
Yeah, all those public companies, do you think, like, I mean, if there was like a private company that like took Alex off of their platforms or InfoWars in total, that like, that's a product of capitalism and where that's their decision to make that with their private property or their
Yes.
product. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of applies to if I don't want Hallie over here in my house, she doesn't have a right to come in my house. So it's exactly the same principle. And to answer your first question, yeah, I'm terrified. I've had so many things on Instagram. I've had so many marks against me, particularly talking about obesity killing more people than firearms, because apparently that's fat shaming, even though it's just a fact. So yes, I am worried about being deplatformed. That's why I have become more careful about who I'm going to associate with. Just like the Proud Boys, they just got labeled as a terrorist group, and I don't believe that they are. But the fact that I'm even saying that, and it's on my Facebook live feed right now, I could be deplatformed. I think that is a little extreme, it's a little ridiculous.
Also too, going back to like the bullying aspect where we become a culture of bullying. I'm not trying to attack you. I think everything that you like, most of the things you do are like genuinely hilarious. Like when you were in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you called that girl. You said she was gonna eat the mic. I like literally laughed at that. I'm not gonna lie. But like, how would you back up to somebody else that doesn't see that female was attacking you and coming after you and getting violent for you to bully her back? What would you say in defense to somebody who doesn't see that?
So what they don't see in that video, that she actually hit Michael's camera, and was cussing in my face, and she would actually just keep slapping our equipment back and forth. And I was done with her. I was done with the situation, and these women just started yelling, "No Trump, no KKK," like they always do. It's literally like the NPC meme. You want to talk about me?
It's very funny.
Yeah, it's them. Yeah, so, what they don't see is the whole progression of that. And just because I said she's going to eat the mic does not give her the right to inflict harm on me.
She also went on Twitter after that evening and admitted that she had intended on assaulting her, wished that she did, and then shared posts saying that she hoped that Kaitlin got shot.
Yeah, so,
No one knows about that.
And it's just, the whole situation is just really stupid, even though I think it's funny.
I agree, but I do apologize if that happened to you and that you would feel worried.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Oh, who's gonna go next? I got the mic, so I get to go. Kate, over here.
Okay, I know that.
Good to see you. No, just a quick shout out for the gun-free zones. That research is John Lott. If anybody else wants to look that research up, John Lott crime research. But I had a point. We talk a lot about the government, and most of the questions have been centered around like who's going to make the decision between who gets to carry, who doesn't get to carry, who has rights, who doesn't have rights. That seems to be the real crux of the issue. And everybody keeps saying the government. Well, the government is not an actual thing. It is a label that we give to individuals who do things. No different than private people. So everybody keeps, oh, well, the government needs to regulate it. Like, well, you speak about it as if it's this entity that is some kind of monolith where the minds in the government aren't individual minds. They don't think for themselves. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're all NPCs. But they are, like, who's ever heard of Project Veritas? Okay. if that proves anything, it proves that individuals who work in this monolith called the government can do whatever the hell they want, whenever they want. They don't have to, they don't all play by this one set of rules and they're all just Scouts honor, we all do the same stuff. They don't. So Justin already said earlier, a lot of the fears about the gun rights, they already have the monopoly when you're talking about the government. It's not a real thing. So I wrote a blog on my website about diversity. Everybody loves diversity, right? Except when it comes to diversity of gun ownership. Then suddenly everyone's for centralization of gun ownership. Well, how does that work? So just something to think about. If you're on that line of thinking, the government's not a thing. People work in it. They have their own thoughts. They can push through their own agendas. They can do what they want. No different than a private company or a group of private individuals or organizations.
I'm so glad you made that point, Alex, because actually
I knew you would be.
When I founded Liberty Hangout in 2015, one of the first videos I ever made for our YouTube channel, it was titled, "There's No Such Thing as Government."
Right.
At the time, I was taking a management class called Business, Government, and Society, and I hated my professor so much. She was such a leftist. And so I would always just go home angry after that class, so I decided, well, let me make a video about this. Because she always wanted to give government certain permissions that us as individuals, we know we wouldn't get away with. So I recorded a video where I had 3 circles: government, business, society. Inside each circle were little dots just to represent individuals. I went inside the individual's bubble and I said, we all know that no individual has the right to infringe on someone else. So then I took away the big bubbles and we see that government is the same way. They're just individuals. They're not granted special rights that we don't have ourselves.
Exactly. Right. Who can best solve your local problems? DC or the people that you can walk down the street and talk to, or your own family? Like, whoever, anyone in government, Pelosi, Trump, they can't help you personally. Trump doesn't have any time to help you personally. None of us are that special. So you have to solve your own problems, and I think the question of who gets back to personal responsibility. If you're not going to protect yourself, why should anybody else protect you? Why should the police protect you if you don't care enough to protect yourself? And I'm not talking about people who can't. Some people have, Alzheimer's or whatever. They are physically unable. But if you have the ability and you want to just third party that out, why do you think people should protect you if you don't care to protect yourself?
So we're just going to keep going until the conversation ends. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Kate.
I basically just have like a general statement, and it's to the gentleman up here in front. It's going back to the mental health background. And he mentioned depression and anxiety, and I'm pro-gun. I'm a mother. I suffer depression. I have anxiety. I own a gun. I have my CCW. I do agree that you should do further background checks on some people who do seem to be sketchy with their mental health. But my husband is military, and every day he watches how I am. And if I were unable to use my gun, own my gun, be around guns, he would make sure that I won't. And he would obviously take my license away from me.
Right.
And actually, just to add on to what she said, that breaks it down to what Kate mentioned earlier, with it breaks down to family. So we're right back, we've gone full circle essentially. So it kind of goes right back to that. It's a people issue. Every time, no matter which way you go about it, because I've said I've thought a lot of myself. And the number one thing that I've always come back to is the people. Who did this? I don't believe the gun is pointless. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a perfect example. My sister, very far left. She said guns kill people. I said, okay. I took my 9 and put it on my table. I looked at us, you see, she said, yeah. I said, you want me to show you something? She said, sure. I yelled at that gun for half an hour to get up and kill me. The gun didn't move an inch. It's the people.
would say to you and your wife, it is great that, like you said, that if she was unable to use her gun appropriately, you were there to take it. Sad thing is that's not the case in every situation. More often than not, there isn't anyone who has taken the gun when they should have, or alerted people that have the ability to take the gun. But I think that every person in this room so far that has spoke, I have not heard one mention of someone taking a gun away from a law-abiding citizen that is mentally sound. We keep going back and back to the same topics, and that's natural. But we just saw another shooting today. There was another shooting last week. We keep seeing the same similar situation play out again and again. I think people with common sense look at it like, hey, we have a common recurring problem. How do we solve this? There's obviously not one answer, but we need to look at that and say, it's a people problem. You just said it. Like, I will have a gun eventually, probably soon, because I do believe that the government should fear the people, okay? Like, we run things, we the people, not we Donald Trump, not we Hillary Clinton, not we anyone, we the people. But we see that there are people who shouldn't have guns, and I think the main argument is, how do we stop these acts from happening again? Who should not have a gun? Who should? I mean, that's the core issue that we're talking about, and I believe that you have more of a mindset. Everybody should have the right to have a gun, and I say everybody that has a gun should check out with certain features. So I think we need to just determine and kind of make a few distinct markers of what stops you from being able to obtain a gun. That all goes background checks, and I think one of the biggest things we can do to stop this is create, a really good background system, which we don't have now because our government is incompetent, like we both agree on. So that's what I have to say. It's a people issue, and we need to make sure people that shouldn't have guns don't get a hold of them. And there's so many out there. I mean, we're America. We love our guns. We love our gun culture. There's an overwhelming amount of guns out on the street, and I think we need to reduce it and keep it to the people who should. I'm not afraid of you or your family, right now having guns. I don't think you're going to come out and hurt me. But I know there's people on this college campus that would.
That is a perfect example, because we saw the video clips of people on this campus, literally students on this campus, who are willing to commit that act of violence. And you know why? Because they know that we don't have a right to defend ourselves here. When you walk to class, you might be targeted because, well, this is a gun-free zone. We know students won't be armed. And that's why I said at least 500,000 lives are saved every year due to defensive use of firearms, and that does not mean shooting back. Because then the homicides would also be it. That means brandishing your firearm, which, by the way, another stupid gun law, if you brandish your firearm, you're now a criminal. If you just lift it up and say, hey, I have a gun, don't touch me, you're a criminal now. All of these laws, they don't make sense, and they just keep going with them, So you say we need more background checks. I ask you, what else do we need? I think it's a withdrawal of all these government regulations involving it. The firearms are one of the most heavily regulated items in America. The Second Amendment is one of the most heavily regulated amendments. And that is terrifying that it hasn't solved their problems.
And you know what? I think it's such a big issue that it's really hard. I do believe some members of our Congress, some members of our local legislatures are doing their best. Okay, they're having the same arguments we have, and they're trying to figure it out. Why do you think we have 20,000 gun laws? Because 20,000 different people each had an idea of what's the best way to solve it. No answer is perfect, but there are some that I think we can agree on, and I think what we're doing right now is very important because, and also I just want to mention that I think this is different than what happened with our rally. Okay, I know you guys might have had good intentions, but also I know there were some people that showed up on both sides that were not there to have a discussion, and I know you're aware of that. But
I'm not aware of that. Because I'd like to know why, if that's true, then why is it no person on my side committed any act of violence that day? Why did no one on my side get arrested, but instead 4 people, 2 of which traveled out of state to throw fake grenades, assault police officers, and throw water on us? Oh, then one guy came up to me, he had a gun right here, he was open carrying, and he was trying to get at me, trying to hurt me, trying to hurt my friends. For what reason? So no, I don't agree with you on that.
Not to mention all the other dozens of students we saw attacking police who nothing was done to them.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that
So where did you get the impression that it was on both sides?
because when I was at the rally, a few of my friends were, and, you know, and I'm not sure exactly because it's hard, because they're at, you know, at the time where it was the police kind of marking off one side versus the other, and when that kind of got jumbled, it's hard to say, like, who was who. But there were definitely a few people there. There was one guy there in full night mail, and I listened to some of the comments he was making.
He was not with us.
Okay,
He
okay.
even said he stood against the rally.
Okay, no, that.
Here's what I'm saying. You guys are trying to differentiate yourself from some people that are on your side, and I realize that there were people on both sides that were on sides that you didn't want there, that the students protesting didn't want there. There were students there trying to have a conversation with you, trying to do what you wanted on both sides. There were students trying to do the right thing, and there were kids, like you said, that came out of state and, you know, threw some fake grenades.
And students.
And students that I think that played out on both sides. Okay, there were people there for the right reasons, and there were people there for the wrong reasons. And I'm just saying, this environment, this is what we need.
Yeah, this is why we did that, because we weren't able to have that environment there. And unfortunately, the same people who wanted to come out and cause violence can't sit down and have a discussion.
But also, I do agree, you know, we talk about gun-free zones. I don't think anybody here has a gun other than the police officer. I believe we were all X-rated. When I went to that rally, I see a bunch of guns. Guns escalate situations.
When did a gun escalate a situation? The only objects, no, it wasn't the fear of the guns. Okay, if that's the case, then why were students that attend this campus assaulting armed police officers?
Because that's what I'm saying, the fear of the guns escalates.
No, it didn't. If the fear, so your logic is this officer has a firearm. He also, more than 150 firearms were behind him. I'm going to go cause violence. Then it wasn't because of the gun, it was because of their mentality.
I think, yeah, but I'm saying that.
And they weren't mad because of the guns. They were mad because they spread false information that certain people were going to be there when no one that they were protesting was there.
I think they were
These
there.
are the same people that just showed up to.
What is it?
I said the people that they were, you know, what you just said, you said, the people that they were trying to fight against and protest weren't there. I think they were there. I agree that you didn't want them there.
They weren't there.
I
Who
think
didn't I want there that was there?
you just said there were some people there that you didn't agree with. That said, that we're not here behind
The
you.
Crusader guy in the helmet.
Yeah, but a few guys, but I'm just saying, this, okay, I'll hand the mic off, but this was
He specifically came there to address Antifa.
Yeah, he follows Antifa.
Okay, yeah.
He follows them around.
So, we need this environment, and I just think that rally wasn't the environment where this can happen.
No, it wasn't, because of violent leftists that attend this campus and wanted to travel to do
There's
something
violent
like that.
rapists too, as we see in Charlottesville, and I don't believe that you guys are.
Those were socialists.
They were definitely violent members of both parties, that's what I'm trying to say.
There were,
And I
but don't look
believe-
at Charlottesville.
And I'm not accusing you of being a violent member of that party, and I'm not saying I'm a violent member of the other, but there just is on both sides.
Yeah, there is on both sides. Okay, does anybody else have anything to say? Oh, he's walking with the mic.
Don't get me wrong, I do appreciate you coming tonight, but, in the video that Liberty Hangout posted to you guys, that you posted to your YouTube channel, when you last came here on the 28th or 29th, I can't remember exactly when it was, but, in the beginning of the video, you said, you're disappointed that you attended this school. Just, my question is, why then do you come back to Kent State? I mean.
So, I didn't say that I was disappointed that I attended this school. I'm disappointed in the administration for the email they sent out regarding how they portrayed gun owners in my event that day. They were saying that it challenged people's beliefs of diversity when that was incredibly insulting. That's what I forget the word you used, but I was embarrassed that I had come from a school that would demean gun owners in such a way. I love Kent State. I had so much fun when I was here. If the leftists weren't so crazy and wouldn't shut me down for my beliefs, and I would have had so much fun. It's a beautiful campus. I loved my courses I took. I was embarrassed to say I came from a school that demeans gun owners like that.
I'm sorry, I took the words out of
No,
context,
that's
so that I couldn't remember exactly what you said. Another question for both of you guys. I'm probably gonna stick it out for the next 4 years here. How would you guys suggest me going about, dealing with like leftist ideologies? Like my first day here, we had a hall meeting, they said, introduce us by your pronouns. I was like, you can call me whatever you want, I'm not gonna get offended by being called a girl. And obviously not a girl, but I don't think I should be offended by that. So.
I think the first prescription I would write for you is to join Liberty Hangout at Kent State. Get involved. Find people on campus that think like you, discuss your ideas, kind of start from there. Make some friends who you have this common ground with, and try to make a change on campus. If you see a problem, try to change it.
That's exactly how I came to be where I am today. That's why I have over 200,000 followers across all my platforms, and I have thousands of people tuning into my live streams, just me talking on my couch. It's just because I saw what was... Wow, see, property rights, right? So, you knocked me off my track, but that's all it took was for me to be like, okay, this isn't right, pronouns, they don't matter, safe spaces, they don't matter, trigger warnings, they don't matter. So I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna speak out against them. And then other people heard me. They heard what I was saying, and I formed my own club out of it. And I actually took over another club before that, and that's how I am here today. If I didn't have friends who thought like me, who I couldn't discuss freely with, then I would have just been shut down.
Thank you for the answer. Last question, I do believe, I apologize. You're dealing mainly with gun issues right now, but where do you guys see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you plan on still dealing with gun rights, or do you see moving yourself to a more bigger outlet of libertarian media, say the Rebel or something like that? I don't know if they're completely libertarian. I apologize for grouping you guys in there, but I know a lot of the stuff you guys do is shock value kind of, which I really appreciate, I will admit.
So as for where we'll go in the future, I think that's determined by what issues are going to be presented in the future. So Liberty Hangout, I'm not sure if you're familiar or how long you've known about us, but we were a much smaller libertarian publication before today. And we were just driven down in the dogma of debating what libertarian philosophy is with other libertarians. What distinguishes us from others today is that we were able to step into the mainstream and focus on issues that matter to a lot of people. So I think in the future, if gun rights are not the hot topic, if it's something else, we'll be on board with whatever that is. So it's about latching onto mainstream ideas and trying to find a solution for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so everyone give yourselves a round of applause. That was literally awesome. The conversation that you guys had, there's no clapping, but I'm going to be booked right now. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. My feet are killing me because I'm in heels, so I thank you guys a lot for coming out and not throwing any fake grenades at me. Thanks, guys. Do you have anything else to say right now? Join the club.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just join the club. I'll be hanging around a little bit afterwards, so if you're interested in joining or have any extra questions that I could answer, I'll definitely be around afterwards, and thank you for attending.
So where is it you come from, a liberal?
Libertarian.
No, okay. Yeah, where did you, me getting to know you, I see you have a lot of conservative views, and maybe where you come from, or your family, or what have you, maybe not appreciate so much. So where did that actually come from?
All my values I can thank my family for. I got my Christian beliefs and my conservative beliefs from my parents. Where the libertarianism comes in is, I grew up in a right-wing household. I was a staunch Republican conservative, supported George Bush. I was a Ted Cruz supporter a number of years ago. And I just kind of wanted to rationalize my logic. So I come from the mindset today even that libertarianism and conservatism are stepsisters. One is just more to its rational end. So I started doing a lot of reading and learning more about my philosophy and challenging myself to make my logic as smooth as possible. So that's how I came to how I am today.
Cool. Thanks guys so much.